All right, welcome back to the program. Victor Alikor joins me now. He's a development economist and a policy analyst. So let's do a deep dive. Hello, Victor. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Nancy, for having me. Thank you.
I assume you've seen all the barrage of news that's been coming out. JP Morgan, Fitch, the balance of payments last week. What else again was there, hitting us in the face? But I will start by asking you, what are your interpretations of this? Because the government is already running to the streets saying, okay, people are investors, foreign investors are having that kind of confidence and all of that. What's your interpretation of this?
Well, sounds good in terms of...
sounds good or looks good?
Sounds good.
Sounds good
actually.
And looks good, I don't think they're the same.
Yeah, I would choose sounds good.
Sounds good, okay.
Yeah, sounds good in terms of perhaps foreign investors are having greater confidence in Nigeria. It also means that cost of borrowing as a country would also reduce, because countries that have lower ratings would mean their cost of borrowing would definitely increase. But if we look at economics of reality, how this impacts the common man on the street, I'm not sure it looks good. That's why I chose sounds good. But I'm sure the main thing Nigerians want to see is that these positive credit ratings translate into improvement in standard of living for vast majority of Nigerians. Those rating organizations, again, they are Western, they are based in US. They might improve our ratings in terms of investors' confidence, in terms of reducing our cost of borrowing. But if you look at the benefits that should follow up as a result of those ratings, Nigeria is not seeing much of those benefits. For instance, one would have expected that with higher increase in MPR, it will attract foreign direct investment or foreign portfolio investment. We're not seeing much of that. Again, because of some of the regulatory bottlenecks we still have that is persistent in our economy. Issues around electricity, issues around insecurity, issues around some regulatory frameworks, and what this World Bank will now call business readiness, what is formerly called your ability to do business and again attract foreign investors.
Ease of doing business.
Yeah, ease of doing business. That is now called
business readiness.
Readiness. So Nigeria are not seeing much of this improvement in these areas, but the fear is that a lot of these ratings are good for our corporate image as a country, our global image, but translating these ratings into real development is what vast Nigerians want to see.
I think we'll come to that in a bit, but I also still want to look at how much optimism that we can get from these indicators. In terms of, are they really signals of progress, or what I call statistical mirage at the beginning of the program? Are they really signals of progress? Because I can assume, I don't work for government, but of course what government officials have been saying in the last few months is that we're working, you will begin to see signs of progress. To them now, these are those signs of progress that we should just wait, things will get better for us in our pockets. Are they really signs of progress or a statistical mirage?
So they're ideally supposed to be signs of progress.
As an economist,
but in reality,
yes, in those indicators, are they not signs of optimism?
Yeah, they are signs of optimism. Again, remember that some of the bold reforms, they called it bold reforms, removal of subsidies, floating of the naira, exchange. So it means if you're investing in Nigeria as a foreign investor, there's greater confidence in you getting your money back as a result of some of these policies. Ideally, they are signs of progress, but the worry is that most of these signs of, in quote, signs of progress have not translated in what the common man wants to see on the street. Economically speaking, they are signs of progress, but again, part of the worry is that these signs of progress can be eroded by recent global economic policies like the tariff changes, geopolitics around the world, and again, remember, crude oil reserve again is falling. Again, revenue from crude oil is also plummeting. Look at crude, has gone down to about $64.
Yeah.
So all of these gains, economic gains per se, may be eroded by some of these international politics or externalities. But I'm not sure it's something the government should, or government agencies, or the government planner should be celebrating yet, because remember, like I used to tell you, Nancy, I think this 2025 is the last governance year for Nigeria. From 2026, we'll commence
I was actually thinking
campaigns.
that they would even cut us the slack and do governance till 2026 to our next end. I'm looking at it very objectively and factually as someone that sits here and take a look at what's happening in the economy.
If it was second tenor,
yes.
I agree. If it was second tenor, remember,
yes,
perhaps Mr. President, if it was second tenor, if he gains
he
re-election,
would be more
he can,
focused.
yes, he can extend to, but this is first tenor again, emphasis around re-election.
With the billboards you are seeing right now around Abuja, for me,
they had come out to deny that, I think yesterday, Bayo Ononuga denying that the president are not, the presidency is not aware of such.
So why then not tell the agency that is responsible for signage and all of that? I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say.
I agree.
You know, because it's really a distraction. Because if we are talking about this is the last year for governance, I'm not particularly even happy about that, because elections really about governance, and the president is supposed to be there till 2027. He'll be celebrating 2 years in May, in the next, it's not next month.
Yes.
Next month. And I'm seeing 2027 all around. Anyway, I'm not discussing that right now, but when it gets to that time, we'll discuss it. I will give the president a scorecard, whether he has done well or not, or whether his bold reforms are really working.
We'll find out based on the numbers.
Advantage. And of course, I'm not a politician. Nothing concerns me and we be politicians, apart from doing the things that you guys are supposed to do. All right, if we take a look at the Fitch upgrade, because this is coming from a B minus to
B plus
to B. If you take a look at it, does it reflect structural improvement in the country? Part of what you have actually also said right now, or it's also about a transient, and I chose my words carefully. Transient physical and perhaps monetary band-aid in terms of just fighting a band. To an extent, I will cut the monetary authorities a slack a bit. Perhaps more physical band-aid, that is the fiscal side. Monetary side, okay, there was a backlog. You guys cleared it of about $7 billion. That tend to bring some kind of, a bit of confidence. The other side that the monetary guys also did, it's the Naira, the stability, even though the governor has said, Governor Cardoso, that stability sometimes could be far better than value. But you've seen that stability, even though a lot of us still query with him that we need the Naira to appreciate. Whether it's market reflective now, that's another ball game. But you understand what I mean in terms of the structure. Yes. What do you think?
So I don't think there have been structural improvements. If you look at, when we say structural improvement, we're looking at infrastructure, we're looking at some regulatory issues, we're looking at issues around governance, human rights, laws, we're looking at some of the basic essentials. So if you look at electricity, for instance, these are structural issues. Have they improved in terms of our generation of megawatts? It hasn't. If you look at issues around security, recently I've seen governors who are coming out to cry to say, insecurity is coming back, it's getting worse in their states. Have they improved? No. If you look at our transparency rating in terms of corruption index, have we seen improvement in corruption? No, it hasn't. If we also look at governance, when we talk of governance, most time we beam our searchlight on the federal government. Yes. At the state levels, have we seen improvement in terms of governance? No, we haven't. Recently, we saw a report that over 20 governors are still yet to pay the minimum wage. Again, these are some of the issues. If you look at issues around the regulatory bottlenecks in terms of are people more confident? Investors' confidence is growing in terms of the rating, yes. But are we seeing foreign direct investment inflow into the country as a result of some of these policies? We haven't seen much. So the structural issues have not been addressed. They are still left unattended to.
So would you say perhaps let me put it this way, a repackaged fragility?
Yes.
Or is it more of macro rebalancing?
So it's repackaged or it's rebalancing. Let me use that word. Because
macro rebalancing or repackaged fragility. Those fragilities remain, but they are like packaging it. This place, let's put this to make it shine small. So, I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say.
So if you look at the ideologies of Mr. President, they are capitalist ideologies. And these ratings are coming from capitalist economies. It means they will agree with Mr. President when he's adopting those capitalist models in terms of, or frameworks in terms of managing the economy. But it's repackaging that we're seeing, is adjustments, is modulations that we're seeing in terms of those numbers. But in reality, does these things translate in real, we can say economic growth, yes, but does it translate in real development for Nigerians? The answers are no, because these models are not models that benefit in quotes, common man on the street. And we're seeing widening in terms of income gap between the rich and the poor. As a result of these policies, whether removal of subsidy, whether floating the exchange rate and all that. But we're seeing CBN again coming out recently to see how they can manage some of those monetary policies. But I must confess that the central bank is doing quite a lot. They're trying to bring in a lot of reforms to see how they can at least have Naira, because Naira is currently undervalued, and trying to see how they can...
What do you mean by undervalued?
The real value for Naira, I think, should be around 1,100, 1,200. We haven't seen the benefits, actually. Yeah, so again, remember, like I said, with the drop in the price of crude oil in the international market, it could affect some of our forecasts for the year. Remember, the budget was developed with using crude oil production at 2 million, using oil benchmark at around $75 per barrel. And with dropping 64, it means we are not even talking of excess crude account now, because nothing. We're talking of trying to see how we can even have close to that numbers. And with the international politics around tariff, trade wars, offers us limited options and opportunities.
Even though some people say it offers us other opportunities, the Chinese say that when there's a crisis, there's a greater opportunity.
Yes, if we can look inward, actually, because, again, what we're seeing with some of those externalities, foreign policies like tariffs, if our government is serious, we can sit down to look at some of the internal issues and how we can make adjustment to them. Look at the numbers, for instance. Our major trade partners, US is one of them.
China.
But again, European Union is first. China, India is second and third. Not much is coming from the United States of America. Remember that we had a positive trade balance or deficit with them. Trade surplus rather, with the United States of America. So it offers us opportunity for us to look inwards, perhaps address some of the structural issues, and maybe more recently, like we did last year and last 2 years, trade more with our African neighbors, our African partners more often.
Victor, let me take you back to the issue of the central bank. You mentioned that the central bank is doing quite well in terms of, but there's still a lot more to do.
Sure.
You know, if you take a look at where the Naira has been, at least in the 1,500 Naira range in the last few months, but recently we've seen that the Central Bank of Nigeria has been, supplying, increasing like FX interventions to be able to stabilize the Naira. We've seen the Naira, I think, trade about 1,600 Naira range.
Yes.
How long do you think that this level of support can be from the central bank in terms of supporting or defending the Naira without undermining the reserves adequacy? I hope you understand what I'm saying. Or will this really, or are we seeing like a market correction for the Naira? Is that something?
Yes, so the idea around it is perhaps we are seeing glimpses of benefits in terms of bridging the gap between the parallel market and the official market. We're seeing money supply is dropping. We're also seeing that price is becoming fairly. The numbers again from CPI is saying that inflation is actually dropping. It means we're seeing part of the benefits, minimal benefits.
Inflation is dropping.
Yeah, so minimally. If you look at, say, the GDP rebasing, again.
No, CPI rebasing.
CPI rebasing is
we're still waiting 23%. For MBS. I don't know why MBS is holding on that.
Yeah, I think it should come out this week or early part of next week.
We shouldn't speculate again because they might disappoint us.
Sure.
SG, we've been waiting for you, SG. So I don't know, release that GDP.
These are part of the challenges. But what you see Central Bank of Nigeria, what they are doing is short term. I don't think it's on the long term because of course they cannot sustain it on a long period of time.
So from what you said now, it seems to be short term. So are we seeing a managed illusion of stability from the Naira?
So you can call it managed illusion, but it's necessary for them to do the managed illusion, whichever way. Because again, like I said, there are disruptions, global disruptions, drop in oil price, tariffs. It means CBN needs to do what CBN needs to do. By doing that, it might not be long term, it might not give us the right result we expect, but the real issues remain that they are short term. Of course, what Nigerians want to see is that they are reflective of the real market value of the Naira to dollar, and that if we believe that Naira appreciates, again, it will affect cost of living, it will affect inflation for at least an import-dependent economy like Nigeria.
Are you seeing any signs from the fiscal side that could reinforce the monetary stabilization that we are beginning to see? I hope you understand my question. In terms of Wale Adu and his colleagues, if there are any signals coming from them to be able to reinforce, monetary stabilization on, of course, Cardoso's side. I've been at one MPC where Cardoso actually said that state governors, for example, whenever FAC comes out, the Naira is threatened. I think that was September of last year, if I'm not mistaken, at this MPC of September of last year. So are you seeing any signals from the fiscal side? And the other question I will add, because of this Trump tsunami that we're seeing around, are you encouraged by the fiscal side that they are putting things together that would not make this hurt us one way or the other? Talking about oil price, for example, and all of that. Are there signals from them?
Yeah, so from the fiscal side, I don't think much is being done.
Because there should be like a fiscal rebalancing.
Exactly.
In terms of even our budget, I don't know, they've not come out to speak, create different scenarios. You understand what I mean?
Yes.
The oil price at 75, this is the scenario. Oil price at 70, this is the scenario. Let us create a worst case scenario for ourselves.
Exactly.
What
and
if
prepare ahead of time.
Exactly. What if oil price goes to 50?
So I haven't
not
seen,
heard that.
Yes, I haven't seen some bit of seriousness from the fiscal side. What I'm saying that is, as we speak, I'm not sure you know the status of the tax reform bill as we speak. Again, revenues have been saved from the removal of subsidy. We haven't also seen how these funds have been spent. Nancy, you and I'm not sure we can statistically mention the amount of money Nigeria have saved from removal of subsidy. So again, it means from the fiscal side, we exactly don't know what.
Though they say that
the
it
numbers
reflects in the fact.
Again, from the fiscal side, we have tax, we have government expenditure. So if you look at government expenditure, have we shown that we have been a lot more prudent as a country? No, we haven't seen those numbers. Again, if we also bring the satellites to the state governors, we're also seeing frugality from some of them. We're also seeing that a couple of other states, though they have received more revenue, as it used to be before as a result of floating the Naira and removal of subsidy, but has that translated to...
Are you saying frugality? Did I hear you right? That you're saying frugality from the state governors?
Sorry,
ostentation?
Sorry, actually, ostentation from the state governors. So we have seen where some groups are coming out to say Vice President needs a new jet, Mr. President have gotten a new private jet and all that. So it hasn't translated into reduction in government expenditure to say we have floated our currency, these are the situations, crude oil prices is dropping in the international market, and perhaps let's be a lot more focused with our budgetary allocations. We haven't seen that, and issues around corruption again are still there. And from the fiscal side, not much has been done, I must confess. I don't know the status of the tax reform bill, whether it was a political decision or it has been halted or pending. Assembly. So these are the issues. But from the fiscal side, I'm not sure we have seen a lot of improvement compared to the monetary side, actually.
That was why I asked that question, because it takes different tripods to be able to support the economy. The fiscal,
we need both.
Yes,
actually.
The fiscal, the monetary. There's the trade, even on one side, and the trade is suffering right now because because of all what President Trump seems to be doing. Let's stick with the states a bit now, and let's zero in on the salaries. That's the minimum wage question. Earlier on, of course, you said that some states have not even started implementing, and we do know that despite inflation, the rate of inflation going down, that is the speed at which inflation is rising. Let us explain it the way it should be. That's, I think, about 24% or so, that the last one we're expecting for
23% the last one.
Yes, we're expecting for March now.
Yes, we're expecting for March.
Yes,
within this week or next week. Yeah.
So if we're taking a look at high inflation with low wages as a way, and I'm specific about what we're saying, 70,000, isn't it? That's the minimum wage. Yes. 70,000 divided by 1,600. Let's put it that way. So you are able to equate that to an extent, even in dollar terms, that will not actually take Nigerians home. Is Nigeria is the cost of living in Nigeria quietly expanding and excluding a lot more people? And it is not fully priced in the elite economic discourse.
I agree completely.
You understand what I mean? Because for the states not to even pay the minimum wage, that means they don't regard the rest of us. That means that the cost of living crisis also, standard of living for those people, getting worse. That means that when they are in their meetings and all of that, they are not even discussing on how our economic lives will be better.
So the real issue is, the big elephant in the room is if the numbers are saying that over 20 governors out of 36 state governors are yet to implement the minimum wage, it means from the numbers you wrote down, 70,000 naira,
divided by
1,600.
1,600, yes.
So if you look at it, already if you're on the minimum wage, already you're living below $1.9, or what recently they say $2.1 per day,
yes.
the poverty benchmark. So those already on the minimum wage that is yet to be approved by over 20 states are already living on below
That's about
poverty
$43.
benchmark. Yes, and the
$40.
numbers again is saying about 219 million Nigerians, according to the World Bank, is living below $1.9 per day. But what is so bothersome is that a lot of states, despite the cost of living crisis, again, disposable income of most households are plummeting. Again, these are part of the reasons why foreign direct investment is difficult to come in, because even the foreign investors understand that the purchasing power of most Nigerians, or vast majority of Nigerians, have dropped as a result of these policies. But it's sad that the state governors, a considerable number of them are yet to implement the minimum wage. Again, even with the implementation of the minimum wage, it's not as if it will improve things per se. It will to a considerable level. But remember, Nancy, based on numbers, private sector employs vast majority of the people in Nigeria's workforce or labor force per se. And these private sectors, how many of them, a good number of businesses are closing down, are shutting down. Yeah. How many of them can actually afford to pay for? We still see security, private security guards, we still see menial staffs who are paid 50,000, 35, 40,000 as we speak. So how many of them can even afford to pay the 70,000 naira minimum wage? It's not as if for businesses, revenue is increasing as a result of purchasing power is dropping, and people are focusing on more important priorities like food, again,
especially food and transport.
Transport and all that. These things are consuming most of rent. These things are consuming most of disposable income. But I worry that state governors are yet to do what they need to do.
So do you now think that our social contract is gone? Because governments should have a social contract with the people.
But clearly,
because the impact of socio-economic reforms are really evident everywhere. Nigerians are getting poorer, even though that they say, okay, that we're seeing these adjustments, they are impacting macro indicators, which were established at the beginning. Since the social contract is eroding, do you think that Nigerian citizens are still willing to wait it out in terms of, okay, let's see what Baba Tinubu still has to offer? Still 2 years, okay, it go better. Do you think we are still willing to wait it out?
I'm not sure Nigerians are willing. Nigerians are getting economically depressed by the day. Part of the worry is that, like you said, the social contract has clearly been eroded. If you look at both from the federal government, state government, and the local government, we're seeing that Nigerians are losing more confidence in the state government. People are not manifesting their manifestos, like they said. Again, in 2 years' time, they will come back with new brand of manifestos. But the real issue still remains. Nigerians are getting poorer. People want to see. Let's even look at HDI, Human Development Index. Issues around education, issues around health, issues around income level has been eroded. Education, again, is even more difficult for Nigerians, for those who want to jackpot, to even jackpot because of some of the macro numbers. Again, issues around health. Have our healthcare sector has it improved? We haven't seen much improvement in terms of our healthcare sectors. Doctors are leaving, even when we have.
I disagree with you on that. Minister Pate.
He alleged that a lot of people are leaving foreign countries to come to Nigeria for
surgeries and co. But some of the things they are doing around the tertiary institutions, tertiary health institutions.
Let me give you an example. Mr. President had announced recently, I think for dialysis, there was some
subsidies, some kind of subsidy for that.
Have you tried doing a survey from some of the hospitals to find out? It's not the case. It was only announced on paper, but in reality,
it's not the case. Did you?
There have been reports. I read a report recently. I can share with you after this session. That in reality, those who are still suffering from dialysis are still paying the real figures, and it's expensive for them. I was at the National Hospital recently, and I can tell you that as little as arthroscopy machines are not available. And some of these, orthopedic surgeons are telling me that some of these machines were available in the 90s, but they're no longer available. And the cost of going. Some of them are recommending people to go to India for those healthcare services. Have we seen improvement in healthcare? At the primary healthcare level, a couple of pockets of states are just doing well. But we haven't seen significant improvement in terms of health. In terms of education, what has it been like in secondary, tertiary? Perhaps there has been stability in terms of ASU strike. Maybe they can take credit for that. But in reality, the numbers is quite different from what Nigerians expect in terms of education. Have we seen adjustment in terms of our educational policies, frameworks?
We still have out-of-school children, informal sector contraction,
of course.
malnutrition is still there.
These are the issues. So when you say when you say the Minister of Health, Ali Pate, would disagree, I want to understand what he disagrees exactly with.
He would disagree with you because I've had
But it's normal for him to disagree, actually.
Yeah,
He should disagree.
Fora that I've anchored him there, he'll be like, I'll raise the same issue. Be like, no.
So Nancy.
And in the last few months, you know, he's been doing.
Nancy, I'm a development economist.
Yes, I know.
And in economics, that's what we call growth and development, economic growth and economic development.
Which means
an economy can be growing,
yes,
but it doesn't translate to economic development for the lives of citizens. So in paper, we can see growth. In papers, in the numbers, in ratings, in investors' confidence, we can see the macro numbers improving. But what I call economics of reality, in reality, what is on ground, let's do checks. That's what we have. So
how do we, because now we've talked about the good, we've talked about the bad, and I also think we've talked about even the ugly, as it were, the optimism, the fractures beneath the progress, then how we can even unlock some of the things that we've been facing. The issue with all of this quagmire facing us, how should the macro, how can we turn the macro into micro benefits for Nigerians? We talked about out-of-school children. I think Nigeria still has the highest out-of-school children.
Yes, between 18 to 20 million.
Yes, our insecurity and all of that. People
Housing.
people still cannot afford three square meals. Don't go since.
We're talking of 1 square.
Yes, we are talking of 1 square meal right now. So what can the government do? Because when you listen to government officials, everywhere they go, oh, our economy is doing well, our economy is doing well, our economy is, wherever I'm sitting, I'll be like, are people also telling these guys the truth? Perhaps it doesn't translate. What are the things that government should begin to do now to translate? The macro numbers are, improving. But there's petrol price at one end, which has further exacerbated the cost of living. I think we'll come back to that a bit if we have time. But what can we do? Not me, them.
Okay, fantastic. So I think let's fix some of the structural issues. Issues like electricity, Nigerian
But that is not short-term.
Manufacturer, you think it's not short-term, but we can't be thinking of short-term measures, except you want short-term measures have their consequences. Of course, development is long-term. It can't be short-term. But if he wins, perhaps he can consolidate
during his campaign, he said he was going to fix power, that if he doesn't fix it, that they shouldn't vote him again.
Of course. So I think issues around power needs to be fixed. Manufacturer Association of Nigeria have come out to say that 40% of their cost is on power. So we think if they fix issues around power, it would improve our competitiveness in the global market. It would also help a vast majority of Nigerian commodities to become more affordable. It will help businesses to cut costs in terms of cost of production. That's on one part. And I think issues around security are things they need to fix. It affects our rating internationally. It affects issues around, remember, food inflation greatly from the northern part of Nigeria. We need to fix insecurity as quickly as possible. And I think another issue that the government needs to fix is access to credit, actually. So it's a big issue in Nigeria. We need to see more transparency in terms of access to credit, whether for housing or whether for businesses. Proper funding for Bank of Industry. We need to see proper funding for Development Bank of Nigeria.
Yes, the President announced that a few months ago in terms of recapitalization for these development banks.
Of course, they will say,
even BOA.
Yes,
coming
no,
to the
they will say there will be increased funding for them. But again, let's look at the processes to which these funds have been disbursed. Again, that's another issue. And I think we need to also strengthen our social protection.
And whether that is even threatened now because of the revenue, because of this oil now, because the 2025 budget in terms of revenue estimates will definitely be affected.
Of course. So all of these things are threatening the funds or access to credit to these banks. But again, another thing I think we need to do is to look at our social protection policy, how we can protect actually the very vulnerable in the society. But research has proven that in Nigeria, some of those things are conduit pipe for corruption because, again, conditional cash transfers have been borrowed from some other countries where it has worked. But of course, if you use the word conditional cash transfer, which the federal government they're saying they're actually doing at the moment, has been the transparency in terms of who has received these monies. And I remember one time when the former World Bank country director for Nigeria, when I attended a session in the man from India. Yes.
Okay, Shubham.
Yeah, Shubham. When he said he reached out to the Central Bank of Nigeria to get the data of those who have benefited. That's the former administration, actually. To get the numbers of those who have benefited from the conditional cash transfer. They didn't respond to him up to date. So let's address some of these issues. And I think transparency in terms of fighting corruption. People need to see that Nigerians are actually serious in terms of the government in tackling corruptions. I don't think these things are long-term. It depends on the body language of Mr. President. And I think another key issue we need to look at is research. We're having a lot of issues that we need to wait until the problem happens before we jump into the labs or we jump into looking for short-term solutions. But I strongly believe that we're not doing so much in terms of investment in research, and it's another key areas we need to look at. And then trade. Trade is another critical aspect I think the government can look at. Trade in terms of, let's see how we can benefit from the gains of the AFTA agreement, bearing in mind the trade tariff and trade wars globally. Trade is another key area I think Nigeria can leverage on the short term to see how we can improve the numbers. But again, by and large, HDI is important. Investment in health, education, and of course, income level for vast majority of Nigerians. If we don't fix this thing, I don't see the headway. But like we said, this is the last governance year. From next year, we'll begin to see economic, political policies that would help people win election, and perhaps not policies that will make give Nigerians those long-term benefit in terms of living standards.
Just as we close, 2 questions. This Naira for crude policy that has been sustained, do you see it as a form of reprieve for Nigeria?
Of course.
Nigerians buying petrol at the pump, I think 865 for Dangote bringing
Yes.
down,
Yes.
then the Naira for crude sustained. Do you see that? I also want to get your view on the NNPC Limited new management, what you think they should be doing. Then thirdly, I hope you can, coalesce this into like 2 minutes or 3. Is as a development economist, what do you think that our development strategy should be anchored on? Do we even have one?
Yeah, so let me quickly address them. So for the Naira for crude, I think it's a very incredible policy if we can sustain it. And it should be sustained, actually. Dangote needs to buy in Naira and at least to sell in Naira to help reduce the pressure on foreign exchange for dollars. It will also help improve local refineries. I think it's a good policy. And it's also a good news that we're hearing that. And again, remember that with the drop in the price of crude in the international market, we expect that it should go down even lower than it has been before. So we should be seeing crude oil or fuel PMS being sold at around 700, 650. I think that would be a huge relief for Nigerians. It will reduce the cost of production for a vast majority of Nigerians. And then for the NNPC new administration, I think there are a lot of expectations from them for Nigerians, because the former administration was one that a lot of Nigerians clamored should have been sacked long ago. But there are a lot of optimism. Nigerians are hoping that they will live up to the expectation, improve some of the regulatory issues in the sector, and see how Nigerians can benefit, potentially, from the benefit of being one of the highest producers of crude oil in Africa. And then the last question you asked about...
development strategy.
So our development strategy, I think...
That's Atiku Bagudu's ministry.
Yeah, so I think our development strategy should be anchored on 1, poverty reduction or alleviation. We need to reduce poverty numbers strongly. And I think the second aspect of it should also be anchored on employment generation, which is critical. The number in terms of unemployment rate is saying is dropping from MBS, but I don't believe that numbers actually. But I think it secondly need to be anchored on employment generation for vast majority of Nigerians. And I think the third part of it is it should be anchored on technology. I mean, the world is moving towards AI, blockchain, artificial intelligence and all that. And with Nigeria's young population, I think we can tap into the benefit of technology strongly and see how we can translate into meaningful development for Nigerians on the long term.
All right, I think we should leave it at that. Thank you very much, Victor, for coming on the show.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you.
I've been speaking with Victor Alikor, a development economist and a policy analyst. We've been looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly. We've tried as much as possible, at least in the last 30 minutes or more, to dissect the signals behind the progress that the government is saying we're having, the fractures also beneath that progress, as well as the structural fault lines versus the human cost. One thing is clear, that Nigerians are still hurting. There's no economic relief. People are getting poorer. Many Nigerians are still facing hardship. So, Mr. President, that's a call for you. Be the best you can be. Be the change that you want to see. I am Nancy Naji. Bye for now.